Hi folks, Wooden Boat Dan here. Just wanted to give you a heads up. The podcast you're about to listen to was recorded several years ago, so some of the phone numbers, email addresses, website links, and time-sensitive information are no longer valid. Please keep that in mind as you listen. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is woodenboatdan@gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to Hooked on Wooden Boats weekly podcast episode number 54. I'm your host, Dan Matson, aka Wooden Boat Dan, and this is the world's first podcast fully dedicated to celebrating the art, craft, history, tradition, and romance of wooden boats. Yes, romance is a part of the fun of wooden boats, folks. As you know, they are very romantic. They're very nice to touch, to feel, to look at. They've been around for thousands of years, and that's what it's all about. Welcome to the podcast today. It's great to have you. If you're new to the show, we've got a real fun interview coming up and some other great stuff. In fact, I'll get it out of the way right now. The featured segment today is an interview I did with Freya Fennwood. And Freya works at Pygmy Boats in Port Townsend, Washington. She grew up kayaking and being on the water with her dad, John Lockwood. She's built some boats. She's learned some Greenland rolling skills, and she's an outdoor adventurer and photographer. So stick around for the interview. It's going to be a lot of fun. You may hear some seagulls in the background. That's because I'm recording from my favorite studio spot, which is Bayview State Park on Padilla Bay in Washington State. This is a cool place. I'm sitting here 20 feet from Puget Sound, looking out at Anacortes and Mount Erie and Sugarloaf Mountain and a bunch of cool stuff. What a fun spot. And it's only 5 minutes from where I work, so that's pretty cool. So I get feedback from folks on a fairly regular basis that because of the show, because of Hooked on Wooden Boats, they've been encouraged to build a wooden boat. And I don't talk about that much of encouraging people, but I would like to say to those of you that have never built a wooden boat that you can do it. In fact, I think the biggest skill required in building a wooden boat really is patience. Because if you have enough patience, you can learn the woodworking skills that you need to build a boat. You can learn to do the research on what kind of boat to build. You can learn how to finish a boat. You can ask questions. If you take your time and you're patient, you can do it. So if you haven't built a boat, I would encourage you to do so. And so that kind of leads into my wooden boat tip of the week, which is if you've never built a wooden boat before, my recommendation is you start small with a wooden boat. Think about building a rowboat, a canoe, a kayak, something that's maybe between 8 and, with a kayak, maybe 16 or 17 feet long. And the reason I recommend that is it's going to take fewer hours to build than a big boat would. So, for instance, a small boat typically, depending upon the construction method and how simple it is, I mean, there's some rowboats that are built out of 4 or 5 panels of plywood that you can probably get together in maybe 40 hours. There's other small boats like a kayak or a canoe that may take 80 to 100 hours. So start with something small so it doesn't get too overwhelming. That's going to save you some money, so you're not going to have a ton of money invested in the project, which means that if it doesn't turn out exactly the way you wanted, or if you decide when you get done, you know what, I want a bigger boat or a different boat, you can probably sell it and get your money out of it and do something else. Also, small boats tend to get used more. If your boat's on a trailer or it's down in a moorage and it's a big deal to take it out on the water, if you've got to do a lot of work just to get it in the water and start motoring, rowing, or sailing, you're less likely to use it. And if you build a small boat, hopefully you can store it at your house, on top of your car to transport it. You might not even need a trailer. which again, that saves you money. So the idea is build something simple. It's not going to take a ton of time and money. It's something that's really easy to get on the water and use so that you actually do use it. The other thing I would consider doing if you're a first-time builder is buying a kit. And basically when you buy a kit boat, you get all of the parts pre-cut, or 95% of the parts pre-cut. You get an instruction manual, you get the epoxy to glue it together with. If it's a stitch and glue boat, you get the copper wiring, you get the fiberglass cloth. It doesn't cost that much more to buy a kit versus buying all the materials yourself and cutting them out. And if you, let's say you're going to build a 16-foot kayak, if you were to go to buy the plywood yourself and cut out all the panels, lay them out and cut them out yourself from a set of plans, my guess is that that would take you, I'd just say roughly 10 to 20 hours of time. If you buy the kit, that's already done for you and it's very accurate. So you're going to get the boat done faster, you're going to build some confidence along the way, you're going to have a great instruction manual, page by page or step-by-step instructions, and it's just going to make it that much simpler. So a kit boat isn't a bad way to start out, it really isn't. And there's some beautiful kit boats. My two favorite manufacturers are Pygmy Boats in Port Townsend, which have kayaks and other types of rowboats and wherries and things. And then CLC Boats in Annapolis, Maryland, who have kayaks, sailboats, canoes, rowboats, things like that. So those are two great companies to look at. You can go to clcboats.com or pygmyboats.com, and I'll put those links up on the website. So that's tip six of the week. If you haven't built a boat before, start small and think about using a kit. I would like to give a shout out to our new subscribers this week to the e-news list, Bruce Berglund, Roger Ewart, and Dan White. Thanks for subscribing to my monthly e-news letter, which will be going out here in the next couple of weeks. Got about 150 subscribers right now, which is pretty exciting. So thanks again for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, please go to hookedonwoodenboats.com/subscribe. And if you give me your first and last name and your email, you end up on my list and you get a monthly letter from me with some resources, news, fun information. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not going to send you spam. It's pretty easy to do. So check it out if you get a chance. As far as an update on my canoe that I'm building, a 12-foot sassafras canoe, I talked a few minutes ago about patience being a virtue in building a boat. Oh my goodness, I get impatient at times. What I did was I had put a couple coats of epoxy on the hull of the boat, and I was going to sand those down and then put on my primer and then my top coat paint. Well, I sanded the epoxy down with 80 grit paper, which probably went a little too big. I probably should have used 120. And by the time I got done sanding and had a fairly smooth surface, I had sanded through the epoxy to the wood in several places. So it's like, okay, now I don't have that nice epoxy protection on the outside of the boat, which is where I really need it. So Saturday night, I put on a coat of epoxy on about 2/3 of the hull because the two bottom panels, the epoxy is plenty good there with some cloth in it. And then Sunday morning, 12 hours later, I put on another coat, and Sunday night I put on another coat. So now I've got 3 coats on the hull. So now, this time, what I'm going to do is go back and sand lightly with 120, and then take my Scotch-Brite pads and make sure that all of the epoxy surface is dull. Then I'm going to use my acrylic white glazing putty to glaze the imperfections and sand those down. Then I will go to do 2 coats of my Interlux pre-coat paint, and then 2 to 3 coats of my top coat after that. So here it is, coming to the end of September, and I'm working on finishing the boat. So, but that's okay if I don't finish it for another month or two. Let's put it this way. I am going to finish this boat in 2012 because it'll be the first time I've finished a boat in one calendar year. Several times it's taken me 2 to 5 calendar years. So I'm going to finish this year, and if the weather's cool, that's okay. I'll go out on a dry day and paddle it and check it out. So that's the update there. And now we are going to move on to the interview with Freya Fennwood of Pygmy Kayaks, or Pygmy Boats, I guess it is. I know it is. It's called Pygmy Boats, and they make kayaks. So take it away, Freya. It is September 8th, 2012. I'm sitting with Freya Fennwood at the Point Hudson at the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival 2012. Welcome to the podcast, Freya.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here today. Freya and I just met yesterday for the first time. Freya works at Pygmy Kayaks. Her dad, John, started that company 25 years ago or so. So Freya, you grew up here in Port Townsend, I understand.
Yes, I
right?
did.
Yeah, so tell me about your youth and your boating experience and your earliest remembrance of kayaking and some stuff like that.
Oh, man. Well, I grew up here in Port Townsend. I was born in a house just over the hill.
Really?
I was.
Midwife, or did your dad?
Yep, a midwife.
Dad? Really? Interesting.
Yeah. And my dad started Pygmy Boats, I think, a year or so before I was born. So I was homeschooled as a child and spent a lot of my childhood around the Pygmy shop. So I've been around the boats since we were on the other side of the harbor here, and they were building the boats and cutting them in the same area as the offices. Mm-hmm. And they've been a huge part of my life.
Yeah. So when do you first remember getting out on a kayak with your dad?
Well, I think the first time I went out in a kayak, I can't remember, because I think I was about 18 months old.
Yeah.
I remember vaguely the sensation of being in a boat in between my dad's legs in the cockpit, and this lulling sensation of the water just rocking me, and I would fall asleep pretty much instantaneously.
Oh, really?
It's like a rocking chair, you know?
Yeah, right.
That's how you get kids to go to sleep anyway, so put them in a boat and we're going to be straight out.
Really? Yeah. So as you got older, did you go on some expeditions with your dad?
Yeah, I started going on trips as a family probably when I was about 5 or so. And then I think my first solo trip with my dad and I was about 6 years old, and we went down the Missouri River.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. How many miles did you do, or?
I want to say it must have been 100 something. Wish my memory is better from back then.
Yeah, it was a while ago when you're 6.
Just a little.
Yeah. But you're only 24 now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm 24.
So you're still young. Yeah. So you went down the Missouri River. That's one of your earliest experiences. And then tell me about some others growing up, other things that you did with your dad.
We went down the Missouri. We went down the Green River, which I think that's the one that goes through Dinosaur National Monument, which was really amazing. We were able to see all of these different fossils and stuff like that. I've been up in the Northwest Territories. I've been around the Bowen Lakes up in BC twice, I think. I've been down the Missouri twice. We've been a lot of our trips have been up in Canada. So we've spent, I think the longest trip I went on, I was about 12, and we spent about a month or so out on Great Slave Lake.
Really? Now, were you in a tandem? Or,
no, I was in
your own
the
boat?
Osprey 13.
You were in your own boat at 12. Wow. Where was that at, you say?
That was up in the Northwest Territories on Great Slave Lake.
Wow.
And I loved it, but it was also conflicting as a child because it was summertime and I wanted to go play with my friends.
Oh, yeah.
And I was always getting drug off on these kayaking trips, which initially I didn't think that was very cool, but then all of my friends were jealous and thought that was the coolest thing. So maybe around 13 or 14, I went, oh yeah, this is really awesome. My life is amazing.
Before that, it wasn't cool at all because your friends were hanging out here having fun.
Exactly.
In Port Townsend. Yeah. So that was when you were 13 or 14. Wow. So when did you? I mean, you kind of have grown up on boats. So you've become a pretty advanced paddler over the years.
You'd be surprised actually how non-advanced I've been in my paddling, I guess.
Really?
A lot of our trips have really been, my dad's philosophy was go out and experience the wilderness. So we would go into really remote places where it's not very safe to test your paddling skills or to gain those. Mm-hmm. And so his hip injury has also kind of added to his caution, and he's been very cautious with his daughter. He was always worried about killing me or something. So I gained a huge amount of confidence in the wilderness. Learning how to camp, paddling days on end, dealing with mosquitoes, living out of a tent, cooking out of a tent. I gained a lot of outdoor skills, but it's been basically the last year that I've been focusing on gaining paddling skills.
I see. Okay.
And I kind of decided that I wanted to start doing trips that required more skill as a paddler, required you to know how to roll, to really be able to deal with big seas, big crossings. Generally, we would just sit and wait on shore until the weather passed and it was perfectly calm to make our crossing or things like that.
Yeah. So, have you built some boats too, Freya?
Yes, I built my own boat. My boyfriend and I built our own boats 2 winters ago. I built a Muralette SDC.
Okay.
And that is my lovely touring queen.
So tell me about that boat.
The Muralette is one of John's newest designs, and the SDC it's 22 inches wide, so it's designed as a rolling kayak. It's designed to do Greenland rolling.
Oh.
And when he designed the boat, I really decided that it was a good boat for me because it was the smallest boat that he'd built.
What's the length of it?
It's about 17 feet and 22 inches wide, and the SDC has a lower deck that allows me to kind of fit more tightly in it.
I see.
And so we went on a 2-week trip a couple years ago now, and I really decided I wanted to build that boat. So that winter, I built my own SDC.
Nice. What does SDC stand for?
Oh, swept down cockpit. So my own Muralette, I should say.
Very cool. Very cool. So were those photos of that in your brochure a couple years ago?
Yes.
Because I remember seeing those. So your dad and you someplace, and you guys were fishing and doing stuff.
Those
was
our
awesome
sea trials.
Pictures. Really? Where was that at?
That was up in BC on the... Let's see, where is it? It's up in the... I'm like blanking in the area right now. We took out at Bella Bella, and it's up on the inside passage. We got dropped off by a ferry boat in the middle of nowhere and then paddled about 90 miles up to Bella Bella and got picked up there by the ferry boat.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And did you have good weather and stuff? Or pretty...
Oh, it was gorgeous weather.
Really?
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Very cool. Very cool. So what is it about wood boats that you like? I'm assuming you like wood boats.
I do. I love
This podcast is about wooden boats, you know.
Oh man, where do you start?
Would you ever paddle a fiberglass kayak? You probably have.
Fiberglass, I have paddled them.
Yeah.
Would I choose to paddle one? No, I might choose to paddle a plastic boat so I can just smash it to kingdom come on rocks and down rivers.
Yeah.
But a wooden boat is just, it's amazing to build your own boat. The experience of taking something and building it yourself and then paddling it is just truly amazing and unique. And I hadn't experienced that until last year. And I've always loved the boats. In wood, I mean, you put the boat on your car and you can't drive down the street because everybody is asking you about your boat. And there's something really special about it. It's also just better in terms of the construction. It's a lighter boat. It's a prettier boat. I can put it on top of my car without help. So
how much does your boat weigh approximately?
About 26 pounds.
Really?
Oh, sorry. 26? I said 36.
36, yeah. So I'm thinking 26. I got to build one of those. Well, 36 still
nice.
Under 40 pounds for a 17-foot boat. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it's got room for cargo for longer trips, too.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So now you work at Pygmy Kayaks?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, what do you do there?
I do the photography and videography and work on the marketing team with our marketing director. I also designed the website. About last year, we put up a new website, and I started us kind of in the social media down that path, which then Laura has taken over those duties from me.
Okay. So how is that, the social media thing, has that been a good thing for Pygmy Kayaks?
Yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah.
We've been doing pretty basic stuff. Facebook, people just really love their boats, and so they want to have avenues to communicate about their boats, post photographs, tell stories. And so it's really a perfect medium for Pygmy because our customers just love the boats so much.
Cool. So out of all the kayaking trips you've done, what would be your favorite, you think? Do you have a favorite?
Ooh, that is a seriously hard question.
Or say top 5. Give me some top 5 material.
Oh my gosh.
Do I have to go top 10?
I mean, it's really hard because every trip has been different, and just the experience of being out there in the wilderness is amazing. I would say that Bowen Lakes up in BC, Canada has been one of the best trips. I've been around the lake circuit twice. I think it's 90 plus miles of lakes and connected by rivers and portages and just some of the most beautiful scenery ever.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one of my top spots. I love going down rivers too in kayaks, getting really hot in the interior in Montana and Utah.
Cool. So how many miles a day would you paddle on that Bowen, what's it called, Bowden Lakes?
The Bowen Lakes.
Bowen Lakes, typically.
We generally go, if somebody takes a week to do it, we take 2 weeks to really see the scenery. But some days, you go between 7 and 12, or I mean, you can sometimes go 15 miles in a day. Yeah. It's been about since I was 14. I think it was the last 14 or 16 was the last time I was around that lake.
There. Yeah. Okay. So I saw you out practicing rolling yesterday. What kind of rolls were you doing out there, Freya?
I was practicing Greenland rolls.
Greenland rolls, okay.
And that is the traditional, I guess the first rolling was done by Greenlanders, who are kind of the creators of kayaks. And their rolls are much easier on the body, and they're really, really fun. I got addicted.
Yeah, and you were using was it called an Inuit style paddle?
I was using a Greenland paddle.
Okay.
Which is essentially like a long stick that's been shaped to have smaller blade shapes compared to a Euro blade or a whitewater style paddle.
And the idea with that is you can paddle a little higher cadence and not wear out because you're not pushing as much water.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what happens there?
Yeah, I mean, the paddle is thinner than a Euro blade on the ends, and so you paddle a little bit faster cadence to get the same distance, but it creates less pressure on your arms and stuff because you're pulling less water at one time. I only started paddling with one about a year ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you like it?
I love it. I got completely converted. I used to see Greenland paddles and think, what are those people doing with that silly stick? And then my dad started paddling with one, and a whole group of his friends were paddling with them, and I went, okay, I guess I'll try this. And then I tried it out, and I just got hooked.
Really?
It feels a lot better to paddle with one.
Yeah.
And they're beautiful paddles. They're all wood to go with an all-wood boat.
Yeah.
And I learned how to roll with a Greenland paddle. I got taught to roll by Greenland paddlers, and I found the experience of learning how to roll much easier with a Greenland paddle. because it has a lot of flotation to it.
Oh, right.
The wood floats more, and you don't have to have as good a blade angle.
Oh, okay.
Because with the Euro blade, the blades are so big that you really have to get your blade angle correct.
See.
With a Greenland stick, the blade isn't as large, so it's not as important.
And the blade's much longer, really, effectively. So
just a little
the
bit more.
angle's less important. Yeah.
A little bit more forgiving.
I actually carved a Greenland paddle myself and built a skin-on-frame kayak a few years ago. But it was kind of an experimental boat. It didn't work for me, so I sold it to a guy that hung it up in his living room for artwork. Oh my gosh. It was a really pretty boat. It was only 12 feet long, and I weighed 210, so there was almost no stability. Oh man. It was hard to keep it upright.
That's funny.
But I kept the paddle, and I'm building a 12-foot sassafras canoe, which you sit on the bottom, paddle like a kayak. So I'm going to use it for that.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you got any big adventures planned, Freya, coming up? Any big paddles?
Well, what I've been dreaming of right now is doing the inside passage from Alaska to essentially here. And that's why I've been learning more rolls and building my paddling skills, is I really want to go into that with a lot of confidence. And it's a journey that just sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't know when that's going to happen. I'm hoping sometime in the next 2 years.
Okay.
So
do you do that with somebody?
Yeah, my boyfriend and I
are going to do it? Yeah.
Are hoping to do it.
Did he build the same kayak as you?
No, he built a coho high.
Okay.
So he is very tall. So
really? How tall is he?
He's 6'5".
Okay. Yeah.
And has big feet.
Okay, so you got to have a little more deck height there, don't you?
Yep, and he had back surgery when he was 22, so he needs to have more room in his boat to keep comfortable, not have his legs go to sleep on him and stuff.
Yeah, right. So do you know how many hours it took to build your boat? And tell me a little bit about that experience of build. That was your first boat?
Yeah.
That you built? Tell me about that.
The first boat I built I built half of a boat in a Pygmy boat building class.
Oh, you did?
I did. They needed half of a Pinguino built, and so they had extra space in a class. It was, I think, the very first class that they did. And so I thought, hey, this would be cool to get a little bit more comfortable with the process. So when I build my own boat, I know what I'm doing. So I built half of a Pinguino for them in that class. Okay. And that was a really good experience to jumpstart me building my own boat.
Was that a couple of years ago?
Yeah, that was about 2 years ago.
That's a pretty new boat, right?
Yeah.
I think I test paddled that. It's a little more of a recreational boat, a little bit wider, more stable.
Yep.
For people like me that need that.
Yeah, it's a great boat.
Yeah.
But then we built the Coho High and the Miralette, and we started with my boyfriend's boat, the Coho, and that took us a while. We thought we'd build it through the winter, but then we ended up backcountry skiing like half of the winter and not working on our boats nearly as much. We were supposed to get 2 boats built during the winter so we could go play with them in the summer, and we finished his boat in the spring, and then mine started in the spring, and then he went and took a job up on Mount Baker as a climbing ranger and was gone half of the week. So I ended up building the boat mostly by myself.
Oh, really? His boat?
No, my boat.
Your
His
boat.
was done.
His was done, okay.
And then he skipped out of town.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But it went really quickly because we had already built his boat and really had gotten the process down. And so I was able to build it a lot quicker than the first boat, I would say.
Yeah.
And both of the boats turned out beautifully.
Cool.
But mine was a little
varnish
bit lighter.
Everything.
Yep.
Inside and out.
Yeah.
Did you cloth the whole boat inside and out?
The boat is fiberglassed completely on the inside and outside of the hull.
Okay.
And then it has fiberglass tape that runs down all the seams on the underside of the deck.
Yeah.
And then the top of the deck is fiberglassed.
Oh, it is.
So
Okay.
it's completely epoxy saturated everywhere, but the underside of the deck is not completely fiberglass.
I see. Okay. So pretty much the whole outside is fiberglass. And,
Yep.
Yeah, which really protects the boat, doesn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I appreciate you sitting down for this interview today. Any other exciting things you'd like to add about wooden boats and kayaking and adventuring and all that stuff? What about people that have never done it? What would you tell them today?
Oh, man. That have never built a boat,
Never built a boat. What would you say?
You guys got to get out there.
Really? What are they missing out on?
They're missing out on an amazing experience between you and the water. You're so close to the water that you really get to feel like you're a part of it, and you're experiencing the world from a different point of view. That is really the largest thing for me. Is I love to see things from their tallest points and their lowest points, different angles, and kayaking gives me a different point of view.
Very cool. And if somebody's interested in learning more about Pygmy Boats, how would they do that, Freya?
The best way to get more information about Pygmy Boats is to go to our website, which is pygmyboats.com, or to give us a call. We've got great people in the office that will answer any questions about the boats, and our number is 360-385-6143.
Okay, very cool. But I don't want to forget now, I wanted to talk just for a minute about your photography business.
Yeah.
You went to professional photography school in Colorado for 2 years.
I did.
Which you really loved that, and you learned a lot. And so now you've started a business, so tell us about that. There might be somebody listening that wants to hire a photographer.
Yeah. I started taking photographs when I was younger and really found it to be a passion. And I graduated from photography school 2 years ago and immediately started working for Pygmy Boats, redoing their advertising and redoing their catalog and stuff. And that's kind of grown from there. I've started to work for... And you redid the website, too. I did. Yeah, very cool. It's a beautiful website. Thanks. Yeah. So keep going. Yeah, and I've started to work... I've worked for a bunch of different editorial clients, a lot in the paddling industry. I've worked for Sea Kayaker magazine. I've had stories in their magazine, Canoe and Kayak. Written stories or photographs or both? I did a written story with photographs about paddling in South America. Why didn't I mention that? You've been to South America paddling? I have. Paddling in the Amazon basin was probably one of the best. I'm 58 years old and I have a better memory. It's true. Inherited it from my father. There's just so many things I've done. Yeah, very cool. Paddling in the Amazon basin was probably one of the most amazing things I've done. Wow. But I wrote a story about it and it was published in Sea Kayaker magazine. Wow. And Canoe and Kayak just did a little video series about Pygmy's building class that I shot this spring. And I've started working with NRS, which is a huge water sports company. Okay. Doing advertising photography for them. So I do editorial and based around adventure sports. Okay. Photography. So if somebody's interested in that, how would they contact you? They would contact me. Best way is through my website, which is fennwoodphotography.com. Okay. Spell Fennwood for us. Fennwood is FENNWOOD. WOD.com. Okay, so they can go there and email you and look at the work you've done and stuff, which you've done some great work. I mean, the brochure you did a couple of years ago when you and your dad paddled up north was really cool. Oh, thank you. So great job. So I hope that goes well for you. Thank you. And we'll put some information on the web about that. So great. Thanks again for the interview. It's great talking to you, Freya. Yeah, it was great. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Bye. Thanks, Freya, for doing that interview. Had a lot of fun talking to you at the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival. And congratulations on the new boat that's designed for you and is called the Freya. It's going to be added to the Pygmy boat line, I believe, here pretty soon. And so thanks again, Freya. I appreciate it. Next week will be an interview with Thomas Scheinflug, who is a crew member on the Pacific Grace schooner. Thomas is one of the shipwrights that helped build the Pacific Grace schooner in Canada in the late 90s. It's a really cool interview, so he talks about that.
Did I say it's a really cool intervote? Actually, I meant to say it's a great interview, and the boat is really cool. I kind of got things combined there. And then a short interview with Dave and Linda Burright, who built a 26-foot George Calkin designed bartender. It's a beautiful boat, and it's got a really cool Hawaiian name, so you'll want to tune in for that next week. I'd appreciate if you would connect with me. You can email me at dan@hookedonwoodenboats.com. You can leave comments at my website. Under each podcast, I put in show notes, and you can put comments there if you'd like to. You can connect with me on Facebook if you look for Wooden Boat Dan. Please send pictures and stories. I'd love to hear from you. And you can also call with comments and suggestions of my voicemail feedback hotline at 424-261-2360. If you enjoy the show, I would encourage you to give me a 5-star review on iTunes. Podcast is listed there. Also, if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by going to my website to the resources page, clicking on any product there, which takes you to Amazon. And if you make a purchase on Amazon of any product that they sell, I get paid a little bit. Also, my homepage is a banner for Jamestown Distributors, which sells boat building supplies and marine supplies. Great prices and service. If you click on the banner there and make a purchase, I get paid a little bit. If you sign up for a subscription to Hooked on Wooden Boats through Stitcher Radio, it doesn't cost you anything, and that's spelled STITCHER.com. I get paid a little bit. And also on my website, there's a tab at the top that says Store. If you go to the store there, you can purchase t-shirts, hats, mugs, flip-flops, things like that with the Hooked on Wooden Boats logo, which I think is really cool looking. And I get paid a little bit there. So if you would like to do that, I would appreciate it. Well, I hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll be back next week again with an action-packed, adventure-full, a podcast full of adventure about wooden boats and the wooden boat journey. And if you haven't built a wooden boat, get out and do it, because it's a blast. And when you get done, you'll look at it and go, wow, I built that, and it floats and everything. So have a good week. Keep the bright side up and the barnacled side down. Wooden Boat Dan over and out. We'll talk again soon.